Agnes from NextGen Professional, and I'm here with Sean Donovan from Clark Construction Management. Hi Sean, thank you so much for coming today.
You're welcome, Agnes.
Me coming to you, I guess.
Thank you.
I'd like to sort of start this off by learning a little bit more about yourself and your pathway into construction, because everyone has such a unique way that they come into construction or they've stayed in construction. So I'd like our audience to know your journey.
Sure, it was a relatively simple journey. I went to University of Waterloo for civil engineering and went through the co-op program there at Waterloo, and the biggest thing for me going through the co-op program was understanding what I didn't want to do with my career, more so than really understanding where I wanted my career to go. I had a number of different co-op work terms, and my last one was with a large general contractor who hired me on full-time when I graduated. I spent 18 years there before moving on and eventually ending up here at Clark Construction Management.
Perfect. And can you tell us your role here and what exactly Clark is?
So Clark is a general contractor, construction management firm. My role as vice president is to oversee all of our operations, but also hiring and onboarding and ensuring that as a company we're growing in the right direction to support the clients that we bring on.
Perfect. And how long have you been in a management position?
I've been in the industry now for about 22 years, and about the last 10 years in a management position.
Perfect. So, perfect person to talk to when we're talking about hiring and what we're looking for in particular candidates. That's great. So, Clark Construction Management, exactly what type of builds do you guys work on?
The majority of our contracts right now are construction management, which is a relatively low-risk type contract. Us being a relatively new company on paper, we're just over 3 years old on paper. We want to minimize the risk to us as we slowly grow our company. So the majority of our contracts, like I said, are cost-plus construction management type contracts. However, we are looking at some lump sum work as well, and as we slowly grow, we're looking to take on more and more risk with projects that we're interested in.
And that's exactly the conversation we're having, is your growth and what's been happening with the growth. Mm-hmm. So you guys have been growing, it seems almost exponentially. I know I speak with your human resources manager, Jennifer, and you guys really have this exponential component to the growing factor, which is why I wanted to chat with you. When you are hiring, and this leads into our first question, we always, as recruiters, it's actually about 95% of us will use LinkedIn as a hiring mechanism. So from your experience and working with your human resources manager, how effective or how much do you use LinkedIn when looking for these new candidates to grow the company?
Personally, I don't use it very much at all.
Okay.
I'm a bit old school. I like to pick up the phone and have conversations with people. Somewhat of a lost art with the younger generations coming into our industry these days. And so social media is not something that I really use a lot of when it comes to recruiting, especially. I would rather sit down with a person. There certainly has to be a starting point, but LinkedIn, I get so many requests. I get so many off-the-cuff resumes that are just sent with nothing other than a very quick introduction to an individual, and it doesn't go that far with me as far as recruiting is concerned.
Right, and so I do believe there's a right way to approach someone, and you just kind of hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Don't just send me a resume and expect me to help you. It is a social media platform, but it's a professional platform. Mm-hmm. There's a relationship that needs to be grown. What would be the best way for somebody to introduce themselves to a VP of a company that they are looking to be hired within?
It's a tough one. Best case scenario would be someone picking up the phone and calling me. Now I do understand that it's not always the easiest to get mobile numbers or phone numbers of individuals. So yeah, it's a tough one because I would, like I said, I would rather have a conversation with someone and know that they're kind of thinking outside the box and trying to differentiate themselves from everyone else that's sending in resumes.
Right.
We do look for people that are unique and are taking that extra step to, like I said, differentiate and set themselves apart from everyone else that is submitting resumes and looking for job opportunities.
So what does differentiate an individual, aside from calling? Because I think you're right, the younger generation, that might not be, not realistic, but I think they are looking at these social media platforms as a way to connect with individuals. So as you just said, you're more on the old school side. How are they going to, if they do connect with you, if they do somehow get a hold of you and send in their information, how are they going to give you that wow, and how are they going to differentiate themselves?
Well, personalities play a huge role in our industry, and the ability to build and strengthen relationships is a major part of not just our business, but every business. So we look for individuals that are easily going to fit in with our culture. Individuals that are confident in themselves, in their abilities, and don't shy away from face-to-face meetings per se.
Right.
I'm not impressed with people who hide behind their computers and their devices and send emails and text messages and so on and so forth. That doesn't stand out for me because everybody can do that.
Right.
So whether or not it's a photograph of an individual on their resume to kind of show themselves who they are to the companies that they're interested in, it is tough. It is tough. I don't think I have, the one right answer to say, okay, if you do this, I'm going to hire you, because I don't have that answer. But just looking for people that can set themselves apart from others in unique ways.
Right, and I think that's sort of on the candidate side, the reason they might be relying on these social media platforms is because they can articulate their projects to you through photo. If they build their LinkedIn profile accordingly and correctly, not only can they show you where they've worked, much like a resume, but they can also show you some of the projects. If there's project files, project photos, you can sit there and say, this is relevant to our course of work. How does that transfer if an individual comes into your office, not on social media, how does that translate to paper if they were to give you their resume?
I would think that they would need to think outside the box with how they present the information. Resumes tend to be very similar to one another, right?
Absolutely,
And you can almost very quickly recognize who's just kind of copying and pasting phrases from one resume to another and putting them on their resume versus individuals who are actually taking the time to think it through about what they're putting down as far as their roles, their previous roles and responsibilities and duties and so forth. If they take the time to really describe those duties and what they've been doing in their career and their work environments, I can tell. I can tell, and I can recognize that, and that's the kind of stuff that stands out.
So you just kind of said copying and pasting different roles and responsibilities or words. I cannot stand buzzwords. So, it says skills and it's great listener, really motivated.
Proficient in Word and Excel and...
Yeah.
Everyone has that. That's my point, right? Yeah. Is that, resumes like that, they're a dime a dozen.
Right.
And they don't stand out. right? So the ones that stand out are, go into better descriptions of what they are, what they're capable of doing, and what their skills are, and what their interests are, and
Right.
what their personality's like.
Well, I have to agree. I think I would rather see 3 skill sets that are your absolute strengths. So if you said leadership, if you said motivation, and if you said whatever the other one would be, I want to see that skill set, but I want to see the example.
Yep.
That's really key. So anyone listening to this, if you're writing a resume and you're putting down those buzzwords, I highly, highly suggest having an example from your workspace on how you've actually executed that buzzword. Or adding it into the resume under the specific company that you've worked for and that achievement. And actually, achievements. Do you like seeing people's achievements? Some people put it at the bottom of their organization that they've worked at.
I like seeing personal achievements. And something that's very important to me and very important to us through our hiring process is what people do outside of work in their own personal time. Team sports means a lot to us as far as hiring. What that tells me is that people who have been involved with a lot of team sports are good team players, and they're going to bring that to our CCM culture as being a good team player, and that's the kind of people that we're looking for. We don't want individuals who are going to sit behind their desk and not talk to anybody. Like I said, it goes back to communication and relationships. And the ability to, as a young individual growing up within a firm, the first step is the ability to grow those relationships internally and understand where you can better educate yourself by speaking and engaging with senior members of the company. So, we want team players on our staff who have those abilities to, if you don't have the answer, reach out to someone knowing that you're going to get the answer. Right? Instead of just sticking behind your desk and trying to figure out by yourself.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Individuals who usually put team sports or hobbies, they're very much oversighted from my experience working with hiring managers. But that's a really interesting take on, if you've been with team for several years, you're going to be bringing, it's a transferable skill, the communications, absolutely.
Right.
I think that's really interesting that you guys look for that, because it's not something that most of the hiring managers I work with or human resources managers that I work with look for on a resume.
And that comes from an experience that I had, 22 years ago when I first was brought into the industry. The company that I was with, our vice president, that was one thing that he really looked for was hockey players. He enjoyed hockey, but it was very important to him that do you play hockey as a kid growing up and that kind of stuff. For him, it explained that team environment, that team atmosphere, and working together as a team to accomplish a goal, and that kind of stuck with me. And throughout my years, I recognized how important stuff like that was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys hired, like you mentioned, based on culture, which is very, not unique, but I think a really great long-term retention strategy. And that kind of brings me to the next step, where individuals, we see this often, individuals put their references immediately on the resume, and they'll also list or put in behind the reference letter. So maybe they've received a reference letter. Does that help at all on a resume?
It does. We, not so much reference letters, but individual references that we can call and have a chat with.
Would you like to see that up front, or some people put?
No, I'm fine with it in behind, at the back, at the end of a resume.
Right.
Absolutely. No, I don't want to see that up front.
Right.
And it's funny. Our industry is, although it's so big, it's a very small world of a number of references on resumes. I've I seem to know a bunch of the people, so it's very easy for me to call and say, hey, haven't talked to you in a couple of years, but how's this guy? How was this guy when he worked with you, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So, yeah, and references are important.
And when you do references, do you like to see the references from different areas of the industry? So let's say we're talking about a project manager, they're coming in, they've given 3 references. You know, do you want to see them all from a subcontractor, or would you like to see owner, like how?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it depends on the experience of the individual, right? If you've got, if someone has 2 to 3 years of experience within the industry, chances are they're gonna, you know, their relationships with clients and owners and kind of senior members of that world are going to be limited.
Right.
Right. So it all depends on seniority and what the individual has done in the past. But sure, if they've been working in the industry for 20 years, I would expect to see some fairly senior references, individuals as references that I can connect with and understand about that person.
So what about juniors? So, you know, you and I have had this conversation.
Yep.
What about a young individual? They're coming out of school, they're coming out of a co-op program, which is a great experience. If you can get your hands on a co-op program, I always advocate for them. What are they bringing to the table in terms of their resume? What are they bringing to the table for references if they haven't necessarily worked somewhere?
So what they need to bring to the table in my mind is accuracy and you know, punctuation and grammar is extremely important to me as far as a resume. It very quickly, if you've got grammatical errors or punctuation errors on a resume, it tells me very quickly how much time and effort you're putting into finding a job.
Right.
You know, and I've even interviewed guys and I've said, hey, what do you think about your attention to detail? And they've said to me, I believe my attention to detail is great. And I'll point out on his resume on page 2, well, what about this grammatical error? And I missed it, right? So little things like that stick out for me. If someone tells me that they pay attention to detail, it better show on a resume.
Right.
Right. So little things like that, and personality. It comes back down to attention to detail and personality when I'm looking at young individuals. Again, do they have a personality that is going to fit into this industry, number one? And you know, that's a tough one because like I said, relationships are everything in this industry, but most industries, I believe. But you've also got to have somewhat of thick skin in the construction industry. More so, I think, than other industries out there.
Right.
And not thick skin in a bad way, just the ability to fit in with a whole pile of different personalities, and the ability to fit in with those personalities and eventually be able to manage all of those different personalities. And you need to be calm. You need to have your head screwed on straight. And you need to have the ability to build those relationships and fit in with everyone that you work with.
How are you asking those questions in an interview? So what would be the question to this young individual that you can draw out their personality or their ability to deal with these personalities?
Well, again, so face-to-face interviews are the best. We're going through some challenging times right now with COVID, where we certainly can't do that. So over the last 3-4 months, we've done a whole pile of Zoom interviews. Again, that comes down to presentation. Have they done the little things like comb their hair and put on a half-decent shirt?
Right.
Right? Or are they, how are they presenting themselves? But how easy are they to talk to? And, so I go back again to, okay, tell me about yourself. Tell me about, not so much about what you've done in your career, because I can see all that on your resume
Right.
already. Tell me about your family. Tell me about your friends. Tell me about what you do on the weekends.
Okay,
of
wonderful.
course, yeah. Yeah, because that's, in my mind, that's the only way that I can really get to know someone as quick as possible with the 1 hour window that we have
Right.
to have this conversation. So, and most people are fairly open to, I think it breaks the ice a little bit,
Right.
where I would think that most people are a little bit nervous about having an interview. And, I want to try and comfort them a little bit, and I think by comforting them and making them feel that way, they're going to open up a bit more and have a bit, you're going to enable better conversation that way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about young people, how that interview process looks, or what they can at least do with their resume, but what about the other side? Maybe an experienced individual who's coming from overseas. So somebody who has no Canadian experience, is trying to get their foot in the door in the Canadian market space. What are they bringing on their resume? A lot of people that I've interviewed, they almost hide their overseas experience, which I very much think that's a transferable skill. What are your opinions on that?
You know what? I'm on the fence. It depends where that overseas experience is coming from. Some places manage projects a little bit differently than other places. So we have. I'll be honest. I don't have a lot of experience with hiring individuals with just overseas experience. We do have some employees on our staff that have had both Canadian and overseas experience, which I don't know if the overseas experience benefited them as much as the Canadian experience that
Right.
they have, probably not. So to answer your question, I don't think it's right to hide that experience on a resume, but again, be unique with how you share those experiences on your resume. Be as specific as you can be with what you've done, without embellishing the truth, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
Right, and that's about it.
Perfect. What if somebody attached a project list? I don't know if you've seen project lists. Do those help at all? I know they help me because for me a project list shows me the name of the project, the location of the project, the duration of the project's really important for myself when my firm's looking for individuals, because we want to see start to finish projects.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Also the scope, the value of the project, so how much is this person undertaking?
Yep.
What does a project list do for you?
I agree with you. I think it's very important for individuals to highlight the experiences that they've gone through. A project list without a description of what that individual was doing doesn't mean much to me. But if you've listed your projects with a detailed description of their involvement in that project, then that's something that we consider and we certainly look at as we're going through resumes.
Right. So, sorry, when you're saying list the description, you're meaning like putting
your individual role, right? So,
what you did on the project. Okay.
If it was a $500 million 4-year project, and the resume that I've got in front of me has 5 years of experience, explain what you were doing within that, what your role was on that
Right.
5, because obviously you weren't the project director. Right, so you've either been a project coordinator working on a couple major trades, or what was it that you did that was associated with that large project?
And what about someone who, has a project list, but maybe there's 1 or 2 projects on there. Again, they're maybe a little green to the game, or they've worked on some mega projects and there's just 1 or 2. Is there maybe putting it in a portfolio? I don't know how I feel about portfolios on more technical roles, not the design roles, but have you seen maybe a PM or a PC or someone put a portfolio just showing you?
No, I haven't, and honestly, thinking about it now, I'm not sure if it would be a benefit. However, I haven't seen too many portfolios, so maybe it would. But
Right.
I don't think it wouldn't hurt anyone's chances. And if they do have a portfolio that they could attach as an appendix to the end of their resume, it certainly, like I said, shouldn't hurt their chances.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so I'm going to flip the script onto something a little different. So let's say we've got a couple of people, we've hired them into this organization. You already have your existing individuals that are employed here. What do you want to see from your employees moving forward? So what I mean from that is, again, this is a skills upgrading presentation and how to get hired. But once you're hired, what do you want people to do in-house to continue their progression? So I'm going to start with maybe project managers.
Yep.
What can they do to keep continually upgrade themselves?
So confidence in their abilities, is big for me. We here at Clark Construction don't see ourselves, our executive team sees ourselves as people who do not micromanage. However, what's something that's very important to me is doing what you're saying you're going to do. As long as employees do what they tell me they're going to do, I'm not going to have a problem with them. But if you say that you're going to do something, you're expected to do it. And it's very simple. Right? Words, anyone can say anything, but it takes a unique person to follow through with everything that they say they're going to do. And those are the type of people that we look for, and those are the type of people that we want in our organization and in our culture as we grow and get bigger. So that's very important to me, is committing to your word and following through on the tasks that you'll say you'll take care of.
Right.
That, and like I said, growing, building relationships. It's picking up the phone. Picking up the phone, like I said, is a lost art with the younger generation coming up, but it's so important just to pick up the phone and have a conversation to check in with either subcontractors or consultants or whoever you've started to build those relationships with, to continue building them, because in the construction industry you can be here for 30-40 years. I've been here for 22 already, and I've probably got another 20 ahead of me. And I've still got fantastic relationships with people I met 20 years ago.
Right.
And that's because of, either me staying in touch with them or them staying in touch with me, but picking up the phone and just saying hi and having a conversation and getting to know them more on a personal level. So that's very important as far as us growing as a company and strengthening relationships and strengthening our culture and our contacts across the industry.
Wonderful. And so do you then kind of allow for or maybe support continuing education? Do you think?
We do.
Yeah. How does that work? How does that look like? And do employees take advantage of that?
Yes, some do. I mean, it's we give them the opportunity. Certainly, we've got to take a look and analyze and assess everything that's kind of brought forward. But whether it's professional designations or expanding knowledge in sustainable construction or whatever it is, we certainly offer many courses to our employees to help them grow. And
wonderful.
It's very important for the construction industry is. If anyone ever tells me they know everything about construction, I know they're lying, because it's constantly evolving, and no one person can ever know everything there is to know about construction.
So many moving parts.
So it's very important for us to give our employees the opportunity to kind of grow within our company.
So do you notice the employees that take that initiative upon themselves? Is that something that you guys look forward to in your employees?
Yeah, it's important. It shows that they've got drive, they got desire, they've got willingness to learn, and they want to learn and expand their knowledge base of the industry. And yeah, that's important for us, because as we groom our younger individuals into more senior positions, that wealth of knowledge is very important, and it goes a long way into creating senior management individuals.
Perfect. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I'm just going to cap it off and ask you, Sean, do you have any advice for job seekers who are trying to break into, the Ontario or Canadian job market right now?
Be yourself. Be confident in your abilities. Be polite. Be respectful. But be prepared to work hard. Evolving in the construction industry and growing in our industry takes a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. And individuals need to know that and understand that, and be prepared to spend that time getting to that time needed to get to where they'd like to be, for sure. It's not an easy ride. It's a fun ride. It's a great ride. But there's a lot of hard work involved in the construction industry. And if those individuals are ready for that, there is so much room to grow and succeed.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Sean. Thanks for having me come by and
You're
doing
welcome.
this with
Thank
me
you.
for NextGen. We'll be posting this soon, and I will be putting some resource links for everyone in terms of LinkedIn, how to upgrade your LinkedIn account, your resume, how to make it noticeable, how to get it in front of individuals like Sean, as well as a proper project list, which I think is really important. So we'll be posting all those links online so you guys can help build your resume and get them out there. Okay, thank you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.